This video highlight is brought to you by our wall of famers who make it possible for me to carve time out of my very busy real life schedule and do what it is that I love to do. Be with you. Thank you. Okay, Elite Dangerous and Frontier Development putting a lot of work into Elite Dangerous lately. A new ship called the Panther Clipper in action. Let's check out, I think, what might be an advertisement. I think Gator might have found this here. I'm pretty sure he and a few others are kind of getting more interested in Elite Dangerous. I know ERAD is. Let's check this out. Panther Clipper in action.
It's going to be a truly unique ship, and it's absolutely massive. The Panther Clipper has at least 1,000-ton cargo capacity, and it's going to be a ship that's very much worth looking forward to. It's going to be very special indeed. Now, Frontier today have released a whole bunch of information about the ship. It come via their latest live stream of Frontier Unlocked, and these details were provided to me a little earlier via the Elite Dangerous partner program. Also, on screen you can see a whole bunch of new footage for the ship, and well, I do really like this. It's got all the hallmarks of the original Panther Clipper from Frontier Elite 2, but it's also got some rather nice new modern design aesthetics as well. Right, so first up, let's talk about the information that I'm sure most of you are going to want to know, and that is the cargo capacity of the ship, because after all, this is primarily a cargo ship. For that then, we need to know the optional internals, and what we know about this is it's going to be one size 1 rack, one size 3 rack, 2 size 4s, 2 size 5s, 3 size 6s, 2 size 7s.
I'll tell you why this doesn't matter to me right now. Because the gameplay that I have in Star Citizen already is better, because I can open the ship up, I can load the cargo in, I can take the cargo out, and Elite Dangerous, at least that I'm aware of, you cannot do that yet. And I really want them to focus on this. I think this is definitely the direction that Frontier needs to go in. They're making huge changes with base building. I like what I see from them. It looks like a direction change. Base building is changing the game. ERAD is telling me that that portion of gameplay is a lot of fun. It's one of the reasons why I want to hop back in. I think it would be really smart of Frontier Development to start really thinking about designing the interiors of ships so that you can go into them, because I think without that element of gameplay in here, it's a little lackluster since other titles have that. Well, Star Citizen primarily in the way that I want it. If they could make that happen in Elite Dangerous, where you can go in the ship and walk around the ship and the ship is designed, I think that that would get a lot more people. I think it's just a no-brainer to me. You know, I don't know whether they can do it with the engine they currently have, though. That's the problem.
And 2 size 8s. I'm going to list these on the screen right here. Now, where it gets particularly interesting with the Panther Clipper is that Frontier are going to be introducing new types of modules that only fit in the Panther Clipper. These are called optimized cargo racks, and they provide 50% extra capacity over standard equivalent racks of that size.
Very cool.
These are for the size 7 and size 8 racks. So let's look at exactly what that means. Currently, a size 7 rack gives you 128 tons. A size 8 rack gives you 256 tons.
Damn.
Now, if we increase that by 50%, the size 7 now gives you a capacity of 192 tons, and the size 8 moves all the way up to 300.
Still one of my favorite takeoff and landing sequences are in Elite Dangerous. Like getting out of the stations, docking and undocking in Elite Dangerous is an absolute joy and pleasure. Really great experience.
Tons. And this is precisely what's going to make the Panther Clipper so unique. If we consider just the 2 Class 7 optional racks and the 2 Class 8 optional racks, we get a total cargo capacity of 1,152 tons, and that's not counting the other cargo racks that are available with this ship. And yeah, that on its own places the Panther Clipper significantly above all the other ships in the game in terms of its cargo capacity. But it's had those other racks in there, the size 1, the size 3s and so on. Add everything together and you get a theoretical total here of 1,450
I dig
tons.
the animation on the engines.
Now, I'm pretty sure that all of this is accurate, but if I have made a mistake here, do let me know in the comments section. Because, well, I'm only human and I do make mistakes from time to time, but hopefully I've got all of this accurate. Now, there is another interesting thing here. If you don't want to use cargo racks in those slots, and you might be wondering, well, why wouldn't you with their additional 50% capacity? What you can place in them instead are dedicated fuel slots. So yeah, that's right, you can increase the fuel capacity of the Panther Clipper or the cargo rack capacity, or you can even make a mix of both. This really does open up the options for the ship are very, very wide indeed. Additionally, the ship has a lot of hard points, so very, very capable of defending itself. Obviously, this isn't going to be a fighter, it's not a fighting class ship, but it will be capable of defending itself with 10 individual hard points. These work out as follows: 4 small, 4 medium, and 2 large. And when it comes to core internals, it's not lacking here either.
Yeah, for real fingers,
the power plant is size 8, thrusters are size 8, the FSD is 7, the power distributor also 7, and the fuel tank is size 7 as well. Life support size 5, and sensors also a size 5. Moving away from the stats, we come to the visual aesthetics of the ship, and you can see right here the bridge. The bridge is much larger than we're used to seeing, and...
Wait. What am I not aware of? What's going on here? The bridge.
Well, I don't know if there's any other purpose for this, if you're planning for the future maybe. They hint and suggest that maybe not, and perhaps imply we shouldn't really speculate, but it's hard not to when you see a ship with a bridge this broad and this wide. Either way, it gives us an absolutely...
So what does this mean? That I can walk inside, and I can walk inside, there's a bridge, and I can walk inside? Am I not aware of certain gameplay elements that's happening in Elite Dangerous right now? What's going on here? What's going on with this bridge? No walking inside, but you can see inside? I mean, like, having ship interiors designed out like this and flushed inside the ship would make me presume or speculate that we're going to have the ability to walk inside the ships. Right. Otherwise, why take the time and effort in the devs designing the inside of the ships? Yeah, they're hinting at the ship's interiors with this bridge. But like also like interior walkthroughs, being able to actually get inside ships, board ships. This is really exciting to see this. Like, it's interesting to me.
Purpose for this, if you're planning for the future,
I love
maybe.
The engine.
They hint and suggest that maybe not, and perhaps imply we shouldn't really speculate, but it's hard not to when you see a ship with a bridge this broad and this wide. Either way, it gives us an absolutely spectacular view through the canopy there.
Great look.
The rotating engines, the pivoting engines also give the ship a completely unique look. And these come into effect when landing. They rotate and pivot downwards, allowing the landing gear to deploy. Now, hopefully, Frontier have learnt from previous mistakes, and there's enough clearance underneath the ship to drive SRVs without them getting stuck. We've seen that happen in the past on some recently released ships. Hopefully, that's not going to be an issue here. But judging by the size of this ship, that's pretty hard to imagine. And in a minute, you'll get, a true scale for the size of this ship when the player character gets out on foot and starts walking around. There you go, you get a bit of an idea there. This is absolutely huge. Just look at the size of the engines there and the landing gear. Now, obviously, this ship is primarily focused on cargo hauling, but Frontier suggests that some people may want to use it for exploration, and I can certainly see that becoming a thing. Another area where it will probably excel at is mining. In fact, at this point, I'd be very surprised if people don't use this for mining. A particular use case that comes to mind for me is whether you use this for hauling or whether you use it for mining. That massive cargo capacity is going to be very useful when it comes to refueling your fleet carrier. It will ultimately mean that you can do far less trips for the same purpose and get that fleet carrier fully charged up and fully stocked. In terms of release dates, this is going to be following what we've seen in the recent ship releases, where there's both a standard hull and...
I mean, that's beautiful. It's interesting because the engine's old and dated, and a lot of times in terms of what I'm looking at being generated in terms of the landscape, I'd say, like it looks very old and dated. But then there's sometimes with the way the lighting is, and just the gloss on the armor, and that you're like, wow, like there's something about the simplicity sometimes that make you go, wow, the skyscape, the light in the solar system hitting down, the light from the smaller vehicle. It's really quite beautiful this way. But, in general, usually I'm ripping on the fact that the engine's older, And I do get a lot of enjoyment when I'm on any surface in Star Citizen. Like, the environments are just fantastic. But, yeah, something to be said.
and
What's
a
up,
Stellar
Nate? How
Edition.
you doing, buddy?
So, the Stellar Edition will be a bit more expensive, but it will come with some additional features.
It was awesome, bro.
A premium black and gold delivery and 6 interchangeable hull kit parts as well.
Hope you and Kim are doing
good,
bro.
That does mean that this will be available for real-world cash. You're going to have to buy it. That means it's part of the, well, I suppose we could call it the early access period before the ship is fully available in-game for in-game credits. That's usually a few months down the line after the initial release. So, release date, 22nd of July. It's going to be coming a little bit before the Vanguard's update.
Yeah, you know, like, again, some of these shots, these angles, Obsidian does a really good job at showcasing Elite Dangerous. There's times where I really do miss Elite Dangerous. Some of the best combat I've ever had. Really, some of the best flight experiences I've ever had. Some of the best PvP I've ever had in a game. I do miss it. It was just so very far and few between finding PvP. That was my jam in this game. It's very physical and raw, and just, it was right up in your face with Elite Dangerous. The simplicity of the fact that this engine's very old, right? You can see it in the terrain. Very smooth polygons, the rendering very plain, but at the same time, there's an elegance to it in its simplicity, and it shows its age, but at the same time, there's like some beauty in this, you know. I really love the textures of the armor plating. I really love the way the light bounces off the armor, and I wouldn't count them out yet. You know, I called Elite Dangerous dead about a year or two ago, but with all these features that Frontier Development continue to add, now that David is gone and not really directing the teams anymore, and they've got their own people in, I feel like Frontier Dev is trying to resuscitate and get out of this death state mode that they find Elite Dangerous in. It would help them out big time if this could be their bread and butter earner again as a company. And the real reason why Elite Dangerous kind of went to the back burner for Frontier Development is because they had too many titles. They were working on too many things. Too many pots on the stove, too many pots boiling. And Elite Dangerous for the longest time got neglected. And competition kicked their ass because David and Frontier, they weren't focusing like they should have on the game. If they really brought their focus back to this title, which I feel like they're starting to do, could be that they could revive this. I don't know what they can do with the engine they've currently got, though. How far they can take it. Also, ship designs are limited to the ports from the spaceports. And you'll notice that all spaceports, as much as I love the docking and undocking sequence in Elite Dangerous, you'll notice that the ports on all space stations are elongated. They're shallow and they're very wide. And so what happens is all ship designs have to follow a template where they can fit inside every spaceport. And because they've made all the ports very narrow, very shallow and wide, ironically, very much like the systems and the way they've formatted the leveling design within the game. You know, you've got so many systems, which is, it's vast, the scale's crazy, and it spans so much, but the depth is very shallow on it. It's the same way they kind of design other things, and this also includes the ports on the spaceports. When you're undocking and docking in the stations, they're very shallow and very long, and so all ship designs are limited to a very shallow and long design. Something, you know, that I don't know, as time progressed, they didn't really think about that, right? Whereas in Star Citizen, they have different sized hangars. They went about, like, Star Citizen really went about things correctly in terms of like how they designed their hangars. You got the small, medium, and large hangars, therefore, and they made everything scalable in terms of being able to do so many different things with ships. Ship designs in Star Citizen are crazy different compared to Elite Dangerous. If you look at Elite Dangerous, yes, there's differences subtly, but majorly speaking, in terms of the overall template of ships, they all are very shallow and very wide or long this way. And they're limited to by the docking sequence. What's up, Maddie?
Which,
how
for
you
the moment,
doing?
is tentatively scheduled for early August. Although, as we know in the past, sometimes these release dates do have a tendency to slip a little bit when it comes to Elite Dangerous.
LT also says, LT, were you the one who said you were living out of your RV for 7 years? That's cool, dude. I always wanted like a little RV to roam around the States, man.
But, you know, hopefully not. Hopefully they'll stay on target. So, yeah, confirmation there, clarification. 2 release dates. The 22nd of July for the Panther Clipper.
That's cool.
And
cool,
early August for the Vanguards update.
Community, bro.
And if you just so happen to have missed all the information on what Vanguards is all about, I'll link a video on screen here, as well as in the video description, on where you can learn everything that you need to know about that particular update. There's also another little bit of information I do want to mention here. Those new optional components, those extra capacity cargo modules that fit only and exclusively into the Panther Clipper. This is a new specialized format slot that Frontier want to have in the future, and they said they're going to use it to diversify future ship releases. So I guess that means when it comes to combat ships, exploration ships, mining ships, whatever type of ship we see in the future, they will be ready to take a ride on my hoverbike.
Thank you so much, Stunner, gifting LT a new member in our community. That's awesome of you, Stunner. Thank you for that, bro. Appreciate you.
Systems that will allow us to fully customize those ships.
He's out of his shower now.
Their intended purpose and their intended function. It's really a nice approach to the game. And yeah, it's another thing I'd like to see at some point in the future. We've seen a lot of new medium-sized ships. This is the first brand new large ship we're getting. But you know what? I'd also like to see some small ships. Now, small ships don't always have a particular purpose in Elite. I know some people do use them, but it seems to me the main focus, the primary focus when it comes to people and their ships is either medium or large ships. Now, the reason I'd like to see smaller ships is I think it opens up the possibility for future gameplay. I would really...
Sure, but I would like to actually see much larger ships, very much what they did with the carrier. Like a mobile base where you can dock ships into it. Guess what I want? You guys, this is a crazy ask, but I think this would be a smart direction. I want the ability to make my own space stations. And the ability to make the ports much larger, where players can actually build stations that have larger ports so that they can bring in a lot more ship variants. See, these are the things they need to be listening to. Right now, like, they are very limited on ship designs because of the way they've styled their stations. If they bring in more stations, first off, they got to have more NPC stations and they got to redesign the ports, right? Right. Thank you, Nate. You can keep the old stations if you want, or you can replace them, but you got to change the docking port. The docking port has to be sized much bigger so that you can get, and the insides of these space stations have to have larger accommodations for larger ships. I think Obsidian's right. Having smaller ships that offer more game loops and gameplay is important. However, offering larger ships that have more gameplay and game loops is important. And you are restricted by that hangar bay right there. You got to redesign the hangar bay on all these space stations. It really, I don't know why I'm the guy. I'm the guy. Why am I the banana fountain? Why? I don't know, Pepe. I'm just the banana fountain. Why? I don't think it would be that difficult of a thing to do. Maybe it might. It could be like crazy complicated to code something like this, but like to have a redesign of all stations and just replace them with stations that have a larger port would open up the window for them to do designs where the ships would not have to be limited to height. You have a height limitation here on every single ship design because of that goddamn port back there. If they designed a larger port bay for their space stations, they would be able to open up the floodgates with so many different types of ship designs. That would be the way to go, and then be able to walk around in ships, and you got yourself a banger.
Yes,
Spread the port wide, baby. Spread it all the way. Right. You got to spread that port wide, okay? And then you got to replace all these narrow ports. Listen, nothing. I love a narrow port, okay? And my preference is narrow ports. However, for just, I'm really walking into this one. Okay, I think that's the end of this. Thank you, Obsidian, for this. Thank you. I can't. I'm way too far. I'm deep in it. Fucking. We're going off the rails, man. We're going off the rails.